In today's episode, we will be speaking to two guests. First, we have Evan Jaslow, a Celtics fan, noted, to come on and talk about this finals match between the Mavs and the Celtics, go through some of the NBA postseason that we didn't touch on. And then we also have Dylan Powers, noted NHL expert, to come on and break down the NHL playoffs and where we think that is headed. And then at the end, I will go over the UFC weekend, touch on some other projects, our projects for the future, and what transpired at UFC this weekend, and one other thing, a quick RIP to Bill Walton. So that is a stacked episode we have for you guys, and let's get right into it. Do something, man. People are questioning you. Shut up. Shut up. Okay, yep, do that. Sure, guys. Stupid and dumb. Just an idiot. Get your shit together, son. Fuck it. I loved it. Welcome to the Dub Cast. So here we are on the Dubcast, welcoming in our second guest. It is Mr. Evan Jaslow.
Hi,
Evan, what's up?
how's everybody doing? It's good to see you, Mr. Colin, again. How are you?
Yes, sir. Good. How are you? How's life? How's everything treating you? It's been a while.
It's good. It's good. Since I've last seen you since graduating Syracuse, I moved to the city. I'm in sales. It's a grind, but what's helping me get through the days is my Celtics getting making it all the way, hopefully.
Yes, sir. Who's the jersey? We can't see the Tatum saying
Big deuce, big deuce, big deuce.
big deuce. All right. So starting this off, I want to jump into your level of Celtics fandom and origin. So you're also a New York Yankees fan. So explain to the people how you landed on the Celtics as your team.
Of course. So just to start off, I receive a lot of backlash, a lot of hate living in New York City. I wear my Tatum jersey around. People do not like it. Um, it is true. I like all New York teams, including the Yankees, besides when it comes to basketball. So I grew up playing basketball. So when I first got into the NBA, it was like, I want to say like '06, '07. And if you were a Celtics fan at that time, you know who I'm about to say. Rajon Rondo was the point guard at that time, right? He was the guy. I loved his just like quickness, his like pass first mentality. So I would say Rondo is probably the reason I became a Celtics fan. And then yes, it was nice when a few years later we put it all together and we beat the Lakers, if I'm correct.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, but it is tough. It's tough being in New York as a Celtics fan. And I'm sure if there's New York fans in Boston, I'm sure they receive a lot of hate as well.
Yeah, we don't like you Yankees fans. Sorry you have to go through that. These Knicks fans, they haven't had a championship in however long. It's been 100 New York seasons actually since they won a championship in anything. So it's
Crazy.
tough life out there.
They win one playoff game. They think the whole world's ending,
I know. We lose one, the world's ending for us, but
Exactly.
it's like a vice versa, whatever. So
Exactly.
I want to ask you, well, before going back to the first question, what is your like Celtics fandom like? Do you watch every regular season game? Do you turn on like the primetime games? What do
Yeah.
you watch in terms of that?
So I guess growing up, I had like cable television, so like I only really got whatever, like you said, the mainstream live big time games. So like whether it was on like ESPN or TNT or ABC, those were the games I would get. Um, then since moving to the city, I've gotten YouTube TV, uh, and I got like this like package you can get with it. I'm low key giving YouTube TV a promo right now.
We're not
But yeah, you
sponsored,
get
but
maybe soon, maybe soon.
yeah.
So yeah, I've been watching more games like this past season. I was watching a lot more games than I was at when I was living at home. Um, but yeah, I mean, I would watch most games if I could. I just feel like when you're not living in Boston, they're not all televised on your networks, right?
Right.
So if I mean, like I could watch every Knicks game, right? Because they're on the channels. But yeah, no, if they're on TV, I would say they're either I'm watching or they're at least on in the background that I'm following.
All right, so you have more knowledge than I do because when the NBA regular season on, I hit the snooze button. I watch college basketball, but playoffs I lock in. So
All right.
uh, here we go. All right, so I want to hear your overall thoughts on this postseason so far, not just for the Celtics because we're going to get into them a little later, but what have been your takeaways just watching this postseason of the NBA? Like, do you have any overall big thoughts or what has gone down or whatever?
So the first thing that comes to mind, just like thinking about not only the Celtics run, but the entire playoffs as a whole, is just injuries, right?
Yeah,
You look at every team for the most part, they're battling injuries. They've lost a key guy. Look at our team, right? We lost Chris Stops. What did we lose him? Was he even playing in the playoffs? Or we lost him in the
I think
playoffs?
it was
Yeah,
like game 4 of the first
yeah,
series.
yeah. First series, he leaves, and then it adds a lot of pressure when everyone's saying, "Yo, the Celtics had a cakewalk, right? The Celtics had no competition." It's not our fault, right? That the teams we were playing, their big stars went down, but it comes back to injuries, right? I think that's the main thing to take away from this playoff run is like when people look back on it, they're gonna be like, "Yeah, they played Cleveland without Donovan Mitchell. They played Indiana without Tyrese Halliburton." And yeah, now I'm a little worried. This is going to be obviously, for sure, easily said, the most competition we've had in months, right, or 2 months, however long the playoffs have been going for. So it's a little scary going up against those big two, Kyrie and Luca. Um, but I don't know. I think we've been playing well. The expectations have been high since we've stepped foot in the playoffs, right? Um, so I think we're dealing with the pressure well. Obviously, Tatum could be playing a little better, but I think the other guys have been stepping up for the most part, right? Jaylen Brown winning Eastern Conference MVP, looking
Yep.
great. Derek White hitting some big time shots. Al Horford stepping up in some big games. Like even the bench guys, Pritchard.
That's
What's
my dog.
yeah, what's the blonde guy's name? Not Cornette. Cornette
Hauser.
has been playing well though.
Hauser.
What's his
He's
name? Yeah,
Hauser.
Hauser.
He's
They've
been
all
on and
been playing
off,
well.
but
Yeah, but they're all doing their roles. But that's my take. I think we're playing well. I'm a little nervous, like I said, about facing that backcourt in Dallas. Um, but I think we got it. I think Drew and Derek. I think they can hold their own against those two.
all right. So I'm gonna say hold off on making your official pick later on because I'll ask you to make an official pick and I'll also make mine. So my thing with the Celtics path to the finals is I think I'm in kind of the middle of. I'm glad you're in agreement kind of with me because I think you can only play who's in front of you. Like, what are they supposed to like go play the Knicks? Like, they couldn't play the Knicks. They lost. So like,
Yeah,
you can only really play who's in front of you in the East. It's really a weak Eastern Conference, especially due to injuries. Giannis out, Embiid hurt. But I also think the green teamers, they piss me off because they like attack people for saying we had an easy path. Like, just acknowledge we had an easy path. Like,
yeah,
this series is gonna determine a lot, and it's okay if like it's a hard series if we lose, like whatever. But you can't just be like, oh, like these teams are all really good. Like, obviously they're all missing their best player
yeah,
for most of the series or half of it. The Heat
yeah.
didn't have their best player for the whole thing, so that was
Exactly.
that was kind of my thoughts on the Celtics path to the finals. So I want to flip the switch and go to the Mavs path to the finals. So they had 2 6-game series beating the Clippers and the Thunder, and then they just beat the Timberwolves in 5. So do you think there's something to be said for like a tougher series, tougher path to the finals between the Celtics kind of having to cakewalk while the Mavs have gone through these kind of rough series where they've been getting in 5 or getting in 6-game series and having to beat these legitimate teams.
So you're saying will it have effect on the finals?
Yeah, and also like what's like do you think it's I'm asking you if you think it'll have an effect in the finals, like will the Mavs tougher path lead to them like being battle tested more than the Celtics who haven't had that tough of level of competition?
Yeah, no. I mean, it's certainly the Mavs. They've gotten hot at the right time. Luca and Kyrie, they've been red hot. Anyone who's been watching the playoffs can agree to that statement. And I guess when it comes to their run, you said what? Clippers in 6.
Yep.
Clippers in 6. I mean, yeah, the Clippers have what, a full starting lineup if they wanted of Hall of Famers, right? Like, so yeah, that's definitely impressive. OKC, what were they? The 1 seed?
Yep.
They had a top 3 MVP candidate in SGA. I mean, also very impressive. And then the Minnesota people were like, yeah, like Minnesota's like I don't know if really Minnesota belonged there. I think Denver would have a better shot playing the Mavs than Minnesota. Do I give Ant-Man the credit in all of the world? Yes, beating the reigning 2-time MVP and reigning champs in a 7-game series. Yeah, hats off to him. But yeah, I think the Nuggets would have given the Mavs a tougher fight. With that being said, I think there's some pros and cons to having to go through that long and harder path. Like you said, yeah, they're battle tested. They believe in themselves, right? They just took off some of the top players in the league, some of the top teams in the league. And then, yeah, I guess, no, the con, I guess the really only con would be like maybe a little wear and tear. But like, they're NBA players, they're grown men. So like, I don't think it's going to be that big of a deal. But yeah, I would say they have, not that the Celtics aren't confident in themselves, and we haven't proven it with our record in the regular season and whatever. But yeah, I would say the Mavs might have a little more momentum and steam coming into this series.
Yeah. Well, just to add on with the whole thing of rest and wear and tear, it doesn't really, I don't think it's going to factor much into the series because both teams have had like 8 days off.
Exactly. Yeah.
So now I want to jump into the actual finals preview. I think the number one talking point for everyone is a man on the Boston Celtics. We're both wearing his jersey, Jason Tatum. So I famously made a rant on my playoff bracket preview. I called him out. I said, we need to see something. We need to see go for like 40, go for score 20 points in a row. You know what I'm talking about.
Of
Um,
course.
Personally, I haven't seen that yet, but there also hasn't been a moment where it's like he needs to be
Yeah.
the guy. Like it's like if he doesn't show up, then there's no problem because we're playing inferior competition. So what has been your take on Jason Tatum and what do you want to see from him in this finals?
Yeah. Dude, okay. First thing I got to get off my chest, I would say it to his face right this second. We got to stop with the complaining and whining,
I
man.
agree.
Every time he misses a shot or turns the ball over, like, dude, like,
So
stop, dude. You think you claim you're a top 5 player in the league? Stop whining, dude, and show it, right? So, like, do I think he's been playing fine, well enough this playoffs? Yes. So here's my thing. For him, I think he needs it personally, like you said, to have a game in the playoffs or in the finals, in the championship, where he goes like LeBron James.
yeah,
Like, leads the game in scoring, leads the game in assists, leads the game in rebounds, block, all categories, leads the series. I would be so happy for him if that happened, right? At the same time, as a true Celtics fan, because yes, I love JT, but I think we are so good, and it's kind of, you could argue it's been happening already on this playoff run. We're capable of winning ball games without Jason Tatum dropping 45 points, right?
completely. Yeah,
Um, so like we can have Jason Tatum drop 23 and still beat the Mavs, right? We just need Jaylen Brown to drop in 25, Derek White his 15, Pritchard is 10, Horford is 15. Like we could do it, right? Do I want personally for Tatum to like be that guy, win finals MVP and like have that chip off his shoulder? Yes. I love Jason. Like I love his son Deuce. Like love the Tatum
whoa.
brand. You don't like Deuce?
No, I love Deuce, but
Dude, because Deuce, I don't know about your friend group, but probably not because you're in Boston. In New York, Deuce, my friend group, Deuce gets a lot of hate. Deuce, he receives a lot of
uh,
banter.
shocker, New
Um,
York fans are going after children.
But overall, I mean, I think we have what it takes as a team to win this series. But as you said, what do I expect from Tatum? I need him to at least have his head in the games, not whining, be a team player. And if you're not having a scoring night, I need you crashing the boards, having 12 rebounds, right? If you're going to have like 18 points and not 35, have 12 rebounds and 8 assists. All right? Like, I want your heart in the game, head in the game. Like, this is like your life on the line, right? Because I haven't really seen that. I haven't. Like you mentioned, there hasn't been many times where we needed it from him. But on this playoff run, I have not seen that urgency, that intensity from him, you know?
Yeah. So I have 2 points based off that. The first one with the complaining, I'm completely in your boat. It's been a problem for like 2 years. And
Yeah.
I think game four against the Pacers, there was literally a possession where he was like complaining and then he was like lost his guy he was guarding and he like
Yeah.
was wide open for three. Like, bro, like Luca, he does it too. So we can't be like all on
Agreed.
Tatum.
Yep.
A lot of them do it. So I mean, it's just we wish you didn't do it, but it's probably going to happen. Just try and tone it down for the finals. My second point is I think the tough reality with Tatum is, and I don't know if you're going to agree with me on this or not. I think he maxes out at like a top five player in the NBA. Like he's never going to be number one. He's never going to be number two. He's never going to be number three, but he'll always be like number 4 through 6, whatever. And I don't want to get into like ranking the players, whatever, because that would take too long. But I think that he always like wants to be the number one guy, but it's like a tough reality for both the fans and him that like his ceiling is like in the like 4 to 6 range, in my opinion. Like
No,
obviously
yeah.
he can be like better or be great. And I think that's why people like really like Edwards more because he has like this untapped potential that could just go crazy. Where
Yeah. No,
Tatum, like
Ant-Man's a freak, man.
yeah,
He's a freak.
where
Um,
Tatum, we've already kind of seen like what his best could be. Do you agree with that, or what's your take on that?
yeah, no, it's the sad truth as a Celtics fan to hear and agree with, but I do agree. I would say at his peak, yeah, he could be that guy hitting that buzzer beater shot in the corner like we've seen Kobe, LeBron, Steph, right? Be that guy. But that's flashes, right? He needs to be he's not consistent enough. That's what it comes down to. He's not. And I do agree with you. We've seen his best. And I think unfortunate for Jason Tatum, right? I think he's just playing in the league in an era where there's so much pure talent, right? Like look
Completely, yeah.
around the league for a few guys. Like we don't have to get into the rankings, but you look at some of the new talent coming in. Luca, right now in this year's playoffs, as we speak, he's leading every category in the playoffs: points, rebounds, assists, steals, block, everything. Right?
Yep.
That hasn't been done since LeBron James. So that's one guy Tatum's going up against. He still has LeBron, KD, Steph Curry, all these guys still in the league while he's playing, right? So that's another thing. And then yeah, just it's look at Ant-Man for example. These guys are getting better and better and better. So I just think it's an unfortunate like if you place Tatum in the Carmelo days,
Yeah.
where would you change your opinion?
Yeah, I think
Probably.
there's certainly a higher ceiling there for him because there's not like Carmelo was like number 5 and he's probably better than Carmelo in my book. Like
Yeah, 100%. Right? Like
He's better
it's
than
just
Dwayne Wade, but
yeah.
yeah.
Like I would argue back then, like let's say like peak Tatum, I would like say the only two guys he's behind in the league back then is like Kobe and LeBron.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well.
Yeah. So like I do agree. I think unfortunate as it is to say, I think he maxes out. Lowest, I would give him maybe 4.
I think it's sad, but it's also like we have a top 4 player in our team. Like, well,
Yep.
so Jalen Brown's probably in the top 15, top 10. I haven't done a ranking or anything, but
Yeah. I
um,
think last time I was doing this ranking when my brother's a diehard Knicks fan, so we get into rankings all the time. Brunson versus Brown, Brunson versus Tatum.
yeah,
So I think last time I checked, they had Brown in like the low 20s.
yeah, okay.
Yeah. But to your point, yeah, you have a number 4 in the league and you have a number 20 in the league in the same lineup. Yeah, we're solid.
Okay, so speaking of these two, Jalen Brown and Jason Tatum, I'm not sure how much you keep up with like First Take and all that, Get Up and all that, but there's been something made of when Jalen Brown won the Eastern Conference Finals MVP that Tatum was unhappy and was sad and was like only gave him a pat on the head and was it whatever. Personally, to me, I don't think that this is a big deal, but is this something you're monitoring moving forward and something you've noticed? I think they actually have good chemistry, in my opinion, but what's your take
Yeah,
on
no.
the dynamic?
Just to start off, not worried about the relationship at all. I think the Jays are boys. I think we've seen it multiple times in press conferences during the game. Like, I think they're boys. I think they don't get jealous of each other. I think they root for each other and they're happy for each other when each other succeeds. Um, so I don't really necessarily like. I don't think I didn't really. I think I'd work the next day when that ceremony was going on, so I turned off the TV. But I like I can't imagine Tatum like not being happy when his boy, who he spends almost every single day with, plays alongside with him every night out there. Like, I can't imagine he's not happy for him, right? Because he's been there. He's had that. He's been in those shoes, right? Like, what did he win it 2 years ago now?
Yeah.
When we made the finals, yeah. So I'm not worried about it. I'm not monitoring it. And let's be honest, like, if one of them ends up leaving and the other one then stays and we replace the other one with, let's say, a bunch of draft picks or another star, like, I'm not really worried. Like, Boston, great organization, great management, great coach. I'm not really worried. But my answer overall, no, I'm not worried about the relationship.
Yeah, I mean, neither. Just wanted to check in on that. So
Yeah.
I want to shift the conversation to Kristaps. You mentioned it before. He's been out since I think it's game 3 or game 4 of the first round. Has not played since. I don't know if you saw the Celtics Twitter, but they announced today that there's no injuries going into tomorrow, which is the first game. So, what is your concern level with Kristaps? Do you think we need him back fully? Do you think we need some of him back, or do you think we don't really need him in this series against the Mavs?
Definitely. I don't know. So I don't know if you've heard this because I know you hit the snooze button during the regular season, but throughout the regular season, when we were crushing teams, blowing teams out, winning series after series, whatever, um, they asked like Jason Tatum, like, what do you think's different about like this team, right? Or like it might have been Brown, and he's like, he literally referenced like when Shaq came to the Lakers with Kobe. Like he was
Powerful.
like he said like he truly believes that Kristaps was that missing piece and can be that guy who makes them go all the way this year. With that being said, we haven't gone all the way, but we've made the finals without him. So what are my expectations for him though? I was talking to my coworker. I have a coworker in my office, big Boston fan, and I said to him, we don't need Kristaps going off every night, right? We just need him being that lanky, big presence in the paint, putting some bodies on Gafford, PJ Washington, that young kid, the rookie Lively.
Lively.
Yeah, no, like we definitely need our big boys out there, like Horford, Kristaps. I think what's his name could be a big role. Tillman. I think
Yep.
his big body can match those big guys well in this series. But yeah, I definitely think he's important. But as I was saying to my coworker, I think if he is the reason we win one game, right? Let's say one night he goes off for like 35, or one night he has the game-winning block, or one night he has like a crazy double-double. That's all we need.
Yeah.
I think he wins one game for us, or is a big X factor for one game. I think Drew, Derek, both Jays, I think they could get it done.
Yeah, so I actually listened to I was listening to JJ Redick's podcast, newest Laker coach, and he was mentioning about how Kristaps can actually space the floor against the Lively's, the Gaffords of the world, because they like to live inside and block your shot.
Yep.
So if he's on the perimeter, he can clear him out. Al Horford can kind of do that, but Al to me is a little bit slow. He's not the true Al Horford. He's still good, but
Hey, no, Uncle Al, no Grandpa Al. All right, no slander. All right,
all right, you just said Grandpa Al.
dude, he knows his role. That's his role in the locker room. He
No,
knows
I
it.
know, I know, but if we have to like if Porzingis's like hamstring flares up game 1, like
Yeah,
that's a concern.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, no, I agree. He's definitely brings some speed and spreading the floor to the table, right? Even his mid-range game is so much better than Al's. But yeah, no, definitely could use. We definitely need one game from him.
Okay, so moving on, I want to talk about the 2022 finals, and obviously they had a little lead on the Warriors, end up blowing it, losing games at home. So what do you think about this 2022 series? Is it weighing on their mind? Do they have demons? Will this come up again? Will this be different this time? And if it is going to be different this time, what is kind of corrected in itself to make you think that it's going to be different this time?
All right. So I think there's a few things. Um, Obviously, even if we didn't make the finals in 2022, whatever 2021, whatever we said, um, the expectations coming into this series were going to be high either way. We finished as with the most wins in the NBA. We were the favorites to win the championship coming into the playoffs throughout the season. Expectations are high. Yeah, you add in that we choked, as you said, some potential we had in our last showing out in this series type of series. Yeah, it's definitely weighing on the big dogs. Got names, minds, right? Like
Yep.
Tatum, Brown, Al. But like, yeah, I don't. I mean, I think it's not as important for those other guys like Drew, Derek White, Pritchard, right? Because they like when we lost to the Warriors, it wasn't on those guys. Who was it on? It was on Brown and Tatum. Those are your,
Yeah.
we lose. Those guys get blamed. Those are the two, right?
Well, notably, Peyton Pritchard. Just want to put this out there for my people. Game 1, Peyton Pritchard, man, he was lighting it up. So definitely not his fault.
Exactly. So, do I think they have some demons that they're battling on their minds, like when they're stepping into this arena again? Yes. With that being said, um, I don't want to take any talent away from Kyrie, or Luka or this Mavs team, but dude, like they're not the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green Warriors,
Yeah,
right?
they're not a dynasty, a
Yeah,
little
right.
dynasty.
They're just not.
Yeah.
Like they're just not. So at the end of the day, I think it's a different series. We're going up against a very different team. Um, but yeah, I think we got what it takes. I'm praying, man, and we'll be watching.
Yeah. So you've talked a decent amount about Luka and Kyrie. So Luka obviously is the best player in this series, and that is one thing that gives me concern just because
Yeah.
he's so good at everything he does, and he can probably single-handedly win you basketball games. So what is your take on both Luka and Kyrie? And you can throw in the Kyrie history if you want to.
Yeah.
What?
Like, I think it was Kyrie who said this. Like all the best backcourt in the ever in NBA history, the most talent in the backcourt ever. Like, dude, we can't. Kyrie said it himself. They haven't won anything. They haven't proven anything, right?
Yeah.
Like when someone asks like, what's the most talented guard duo in NBA history, you're gonna call out a bunch of jamokes who haven't won an NBA championship. Like, no, you need to prove that you guys are dominant and you have what it takes to win. But yeah, with that being said, individually, they're both super talented. Kyrie, I think offensively, one of the best handles of all time, one of the best finishers of all time. And then, as you said, Luka, hands down, not only the best player in this series, I think he's a top, if not 2, then 3 player in the league.
Yeah.
So I don't like. Were you watching that first quarter he had against Minnesota last series when he dropped like 23 in the first quarter?
No, I
And
wasn't, but I was made aware of it.
he pulled one from the logo like it was nothing.
Yeah.
And like, dude, I will say something about Luka that someone said the other day. Might have been on First Take. Dude, I don't like. Tell me if you agree with me, man. He makes it look effortless, right?
Totally.
Dude,
Totally.
like, so I think it was like JJ might have asked him to like in a personal interview, like, dude, when they're like, hey, Luka, like when you played Atlanta the other week and you dropped 50, like, is that hard for you? And he was like, yeah, like, dude, he's an assassin. So I'm definitely worried about Luka and what he can carve. Not what he's gonna carve up our defense. He can carve up any defense. He's that talented. So yeah, having those two guys on your team obviously scary. But I think a big factor in this is going to be the crowd in Boston. How we're going to light up Kyrie, let him hear it.
Yeah.
Because obviously, as all Celtics fans know, I hate to use this term, but he was basically a cancer to our locker room. Was tearing our team apart. Was not good. So we definitely Boston fans don't forget. If that's one thing I've learned about being a Boston fan, Boston fans don't forget. And honestly, I'm worried. So I think we could all agree that that's gonna happen to Kyrie. But what I'm worried about is how Luka's gonna react to that happening to Kyrie. Right?
Yeah.
I think Luka's gonna take that personally and be like, okay, like let me silence these guys. All right, let me silence the crowd. So I am worried about that. But yeah, no, Kyrie is certainly. I'm not even guessing. Like I'm confident he's going to be lit up the entire series.
Yeah. Well, the thing about Kyrie is obviously he won the championship with LeBron already, And I think personally, I think he doesn't even care. Like if literally the Celtics fans boo him every time he touches the ball, I don't think it'll affect him at all.
Yeah, I mean, you say that, right? You
I mean,
say that, but
you
like,
say it, but like I think when you
it's a lot.
compare
It's a lot,
some,
and it's
it
not
is a
just
lot,
booing.
but
It's not just booing, right? They're chanting shit at you, right? They might be
yeah,
like, they might throw some popcorn. Like, dude, like no one likes that. Like,
no,
no matter
certainly
how
not.
long you've been in the NBA. But yeah, I hear you. I think Kyrie is Kyrie. He's gonna go out there. He's gonna put up his numbers. He's gonna hit some big shots. Um, but yeah, we're gonna have to, the Celtics as a whole. We're gonna have to bring our A game. That's for sure.
Yeah, so just quickly, the things that scare me about Luca and Kyrie, Luca has already won a championship where he was dominating like grown men in Europe. So
Yeah.
he's ready for this, and Kyrie already has championship experience. I mean, we have Drew, but I don't know, the experience thing I think slants a little bit in Dallas's favor, just slightly, just due to that fact. So I wanted to quickly mention, we're kind of running out of time here, by the way. I don't know if you see that, but I wanted to quickly mention that um, people just hate the Celtics online. And I don't know what that's all about.
Yeah.
Um, do you like it seems like we're just kind of the villain. Well, I mean, it makes sense because when you think about like sports history, you think like the Chiefs, like everyone hates the Chiefs because
Yeah.
they won all the Super Bowls. Everyone hates the Warriors because they won all the things. I guess the thing is like, why are we getting all this hate when we haven't even won yet? I don't know what it is about Tatum. I think Tatum's a fine guy, like from the outside looking in.
Yeah.
Maybe he's a little bit of a fraud for people's eyes. I don't not I'm not saying that. I'm saying maybe what people think. I don't know what it is. Maybe living in New York, what's driving this hate for
Yeah, I mean, well, like, what's driving the hate in New York? New York hates everything that has to do with Boston. Their sports, the
yeah, well,
city.
okay, well,
Right.
maybe not New York, just like the general discourse, because it seems
Yeah,
like
no,
it's
I mean, I think it's like you said. The last what? When was Tatum? When we snagged Tatum and Brown though? 2017.
2017 and 2016, I believe.
Okay, so yeah, I mean, we've been good for almost the last 8 years, right?
Yep,
Since we drafted those two young bulls, like,
they've been to the
like
last, I think, six conference finals.
yeah. So like you said though, you nailed it on the head. The Chiefs, and before the Chiefs, it was the Patriots,
Yep.
the Warriors, right? Um, I don't know. It's people don't like the people that always are winning. They want someone to beat them, right? And honestly, I'm fortunate enough to be rooting for a team like Boston Celtics and also be rooting for the team like New York Yankees.
We don't need to talk
As a
about that.
Yankee, but even as a Yankees fan, you see it too, right? We've been so dominant as an MLB organization since baseball has even started.
Yeah,
What,
well,
28 World Series? Like, but even like, to my point, even we haven't even won a World Series since what, 08, 09?
oh nine,
And
yeah,
we've been in every playoffs. We've been in almost every ALCS, whatever it is. And people don't like that, right? They don't like to see the same people every year winning and winning and winning. And as you mentioned, we've been to the Eastern Conference Finals the last 6 years. So I think that puts a big back target on Tatum, on Brown, the Celtics in general. I think that's where a lot of the heat comes from, right? You root for a different team, and you have to play us in the first or second round, and we have the most wins almost every single year. Like, yeah, you don't like us. But I think you nailed it on the head. I think that's what it is. I think it's just we've been so, not even like great. We've been consistently really good, and
hmm
I don't think people like that.
yeah. I think you've even seen it with the Nuggets. People started to hate them because they won a championship.
Exactly. Like, people felt so good with about Jokic winning the chip, right? And then like he became a dominant player, a dominant team, and people started hating on him. They're like,
Yep.
all right, too much, too much. Like, you
All
know?
right. So the time has come.
All right.
Let's hear your official pick for the finals. Tell me the team, tell me the amount of games, and also tell me your finals MVP,
All right.
and then I'll get mine.
Yep. So I'm gonna bring it back to what I said earlier. I think Tatum is this is gonna be his series that takes that rock off his shoulder. Could be completely wrong. He could come choke, be a keep typical JT night, fucking,
Yep.
whatever. But I'm predicting Celtics win in six, and Jason Tatum is the 2024 Finals MVP.
So, very good pick because it's also my pick, but I have a reason for it. Back when the playoffs started, I actually predicted Mavs versus Celtics, and I think I took the Celtics in six. So I got to stick to that pick. As for Finals MVP, I think it's a toss-up between Brown and Tatum. I think it just depends which one of them takes over on the nights that they win. I think ultimately it's going to be Tatum because I think, like you said, he's got to drive. I think he's gonna get after it this series. I think this is going to be a Jason
Yeah,
Tatum series, and that's just me being hopeful. It
of
could go
course.
to it could go to shit as you said. So lock in those picks quickly. I don't know if you're still on the sports gambling wave. I don't know if you still are. What is your take on Game One Celtics minus 6.5?
So I am gladly could say I am off the betting train. But I don't judge.
Congratulations.
I fully understand the lads that are still on the train, understand the thrill of it. Um, but what do I think of that line? I think it's a little much. I don't like it at all, honestly.
All right, good because
Like
I
I
placed
don't
a
I
responsible
really
wager on Celtics minus 6.5. So
okay.
nah, it's fine.
I'm gonna say we don't win by 7.
Okay. All right. Well, I placed Celtics 6.5, so I got my fingers crossed.
All right, man.
All right,
Uh,
so it's been a pleasure here. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything else NBA you want to touch on quickly if you want to give out any
no,
spicy takes?
I appreciate it, Colin. Letting me come on the podcast. This is called was it Dubcast?
Upcast.
All right, Dubcast to the moon, and I'll look forward to maybe coming around some another time soon.
All right, I'm sure you'll be back. Is there any you want to plug your social medias, or do you not want people to find you?
Yeah, no, I'm MIA. All right, I'm off the
All
grid.
right, sounds good, man. All right, listen, it was really great to catch up with you. We'll see you back soon. All right, go Celtics.
Listen, man, be good. Go C's. We'll be watching together.
All right, sounds good. Thank you to Jazlo for the great conversation about the Celtics. And now let's kick it to our conversation with Dylan about the NHL. Now, welcoming on a very special guest to the Dubcast, we have Dylan Powers here today to talk some NHL. Do you want to give a little intro or you want to just get right into it?
No, let's get right into it. I think that was good enough of an intro.
All right, so before we jump into the Stanley Cup final, I haven't done an updated thoughts slash podcast about the second round and this past round as well. So my first kind of question to you is, how have you been enjoying these playoffs? And are there any like broad takes you're taking away from anything you've seen or what like sticks out to you right away?
I thought they've been a great playoffs. I think each round have given us good series. And ultimately the best teams have come out and showed that they're the best teams. Um, I will say a takeaway I have, especially from the Panthers, with you know what they've done to teams. They've emasculated teams. They've beat them up and they made it so they can't fight anymore. And they're kind of showing now it's their second consecutive cup they made. It might be the formula to winning it all.
Yeah. And well, this with this Rangers series, it seemed like the Rangers, I only caught a couple of games, but it seemed like the Rangers really just couldn't like shoot at all. And that was kind of the same case with the Panthers. Is that like what you're kind of referring to with the like emasculating stuff?
Yeah, I mean the Rangers were one of the best teams all year, if not the best team. I know they were one of your favorites,
Yeah.
and they were deep as hell. But after like it was like a shift during Game 4 that you saw Florida just completely started to dominate, and there was nothing the Rangers could do about it.
Yeah. Well, for those of you who are waiting, I was very close to my bracket prediction of Stars versus Rangers, but fell right on the doorstep. Both of them lost in the conference. Did you make a bracket?
I did. Mine fell apart in the second round though.
Oh, okay.
I think my prediction was I think I had Carolina and the Avalanche in mind, so then that didn't work
Yeah.
out great.
The only thing I had wrong was the Lightning, but then they screwed up. So how do you think like this postseason stacks up with other postseasons, like excitement wise, like I guess level of gameplay? I feel like there hasn't been as many game sevens as you'd expect in like a postseason. Does that like affect your enjoyment of it all, or are you just taking it all in kind of thing? Like any playoff hockey is good.
Hey, game sevens are always fun, but I think a sign of there not being a lot of game sevens is just that these have been we're seeing the best teams like be the best teams that they are. So yeah, I'm kind of mixed on it. Like, yeah, love to see some really tense hockey, game sevens, see the barn going crazy, but at the same time, kind of seeing teams take care of business and then to get where they need to go, that's kind of satisfying to watch as well. In terms of how it stacks up against like postseasons from the past, I think this one is a little bit more hyped up than it has been in years, and I think a lot of that has to do with Edmonton because it's the first Canadian team in a cup since Vancouver in 2011. Arguably, you definitely the best player in the world, and then I think Draisaitl's probably like number 3 or 4 on that list. And it's a small market team from Western Canada that's might win it all. So I think there's plenty of hype.
Yeah. So going into well, I never really touched on the Bruins. I've put a preface out there that my only thoughts are on the Bruins are from listening to Felger and Maz. They're like super tainted. So what do you have to say about like the Bruins season at all? Like I consider it like a decent success, but I'm not like in the trenches. I don't watch as much as you. So what do you think what would you quantify the season as for the Bruins, and what would you like hope for next year? Like what do you think the next couple of years look like with the Bruins?
I take to start. I take this season as a success. I thought initially going into the season it was going to be a success to make the playoffs. They lost Bergeron, Krejci. They lost like Bertuzzi and Orlov. There were 2 big deadline acquisitions last year, so they were a depleted team with not a lot of money to spend, and they made it out of the first round against a pretty decent Toronto team. So I'll take this season as a success. Going forward, I feel good about where they're at. They've got young talent in the pipeline. They've got a core, Pasta, McAvoy, Lindholm, Zaka, Quill, whoever, that is only going to get stronger, I hope, because Sweeney's the best, if one of the best, if not the best GM in the NHL right now. So I feel pretty good about the Bruins going forward. They have to spend money, not pull a John Henry.
What's your analysis on the double goalie? Because I know on Felger and Maz, especially Felger's like trade. I think he wanted to trade Allmark now, and it seems like Swayman's like at least built for the playoffs. So do you think they should trade Allmark, or do you think they should hold on to him? What do you think they should do there?
I think they should trade him. It's great having the fact that if Linus Allmark is your backup and he's arguably a top 10 goalie in the league. And the Bruins have holes in their lineup, especially at center and like in left D, which trading Allmark could address those needs immediately. So yeah, it might mess up the vibes a little bit, but I think you're better off in the long run, especially with Sway establishing himself as one of the best goalies in the league.
Okay, so last kind of Bruins question before we move on to this finals. What do you think, or what do you make of the coaching of Jim Montgomery? And maybe a little personal question for me: what exactly does like a hockey coach do that like is good or bad? Like, because to me it seems like they just kind of like make the shift changes, and they always just show them like standing there. So I'm not really sure like what the specifics are of if they make plays or anything like that. So I guess kind of a big question there, but I guess pick one of those and then we can just go from
Mm.
there.
All right. Yeah, I can definitely address about Monty. I like Monty as a coach for like 90% of the year. And then it kind of seems like he panics come playoff time. And especially like, and I've wondered in past years about how much the head coach has decision making wise, because there's assistants there. They pretty much, it's like football. They have offensive coordination, they have defensive coaches, and they have a special teams coach. So I think overall, the head coach he's going to be the hierarchy of it all, and he's also got to trust those guys to make decisions. Now, one thing I think that is 100% a Monty mess up, and not, and players too, but the Bruins had like 8 too many men penalties in the playoffs.
Yeah, that was bad.
Um, that I think it doubled the record for a single like playoff run, and the Bruins only played in 2 rounds. And that's because Monty panics and starts switching up his lines a lot, who he wants to go where, the matchups, and I think he gets some of these guys wires crossed. Um, so like I said, I love him as a coach in the regular season when it's smooth sailing. He's a winner. But it seems like when it comes down to crunch time, it's a little shaky.
Yeah, I mean, last year was pretty bad with the blown lead, and then this year, to follow up on your stat about the too many men on ice, I think they said it was like they had like 8, and then the rest of the teams combined had like 3, like all the other teams in the
Yeah,
playoffs. So
yeah.
I guess we'll have to wait and see. You don't think he's gonna be fired, right?
No, if the Bruins if they have like another great regular season and then fall flat in the playoffs, then I think maybe because this is a win now team.
Okay, got it. So enough with the Bruins talk. Let's get into these Stanley Cup finals. So first, I want to preface by talking about both the what is it, the Western Conference and the Eastern Conference, is that what they call it? Those final series.
Yep.
So we already talked a little bit about the Panthers and the Rangers series, but what were your major takeaways there, if any you haven't said so far? I mean, it seemed like the Rangers just weren't built for this fight against Florida, and um, Igor was still decent, but just wasn't enough offensive firepower.
Yeah. I'll say like I think the Rangers and the Bruins series ended up being way more similar or a lot closer than I thought they would be. The Rangers were a much better team, but it's the way Florida plays. I think I'd mentioned earlier that they emasculate teams. They pretty much make them quit, whether it's playing dirty or just hitting the shit out of people. Um, Florida's forecheck is aggressive. It's really, really physical. They play heavy. They have heavy bodies coming down the ice, and it's nonstop. Everybody on their team hits. Um, and I think that toughness, that physicality is what ended up winning them the series. Like offensively, they're good. They're good, but they're not better than like in Edmonton. Honestly, their offense going into the year wasn't better than the Rangers either. They're just built for the playoffs. That was my biggest takeaway from that.
Okay, so then moving west, we had the Oilers and the Stars, and it seemed to me like the Oilers are always that team that can kind of like bring that offensive firepower. I know 2 years ago when I was super into the playoffs, they had that goalie who kind of sucked. I forget his name.
Mm-hmm.
And now it seems like they got a little bit of a better goalie, but I didn't expect them to win this series, especially in 6 games. I thought for sure the Stars would at least take it 7.
Yeah.
So it seems like the Stars, this is the second year in a row they've kind of left our performed below expectations. Granted that it's hard to make it's probably the hardest sport to make a final in, but they're supposed to be like the favorite in this overall thing. Were they last year
Mm-hmm.
too? And like what overall are you seeing from the Stars and the Oilers that were able to let them prevail over the Stars?
Well, I mean, I think you kind of hit it with the star spot on. Like they seem like the favorite. They seem like such a good team going in, and Edmonton's like I thought Edmonton was going to give them a fight, then that the Stars were going to take it in 6 or 7. Um, but what I take away from the Stars, Jake Ottinger might be the best goalie in the league. He's a absolute stud. Um, but I think the Stars had a little bit too much of a drop off from their high end talent to their depth talent. Like they have was it Robertson? Jason Robertson is a stud. They've got like Miro Heiskanen, Harley, and they've got another guy, I can't remember his name, on the blue line that are pretty damn good. But when I'm watching some of these games and I'm seeing like, yeah, I know Tyler Seguin scored a couple goals, but him and guys like Jamie Benn, who those are your leaders, those are your vets, these are your playoff battle tested guys, and they couldn't get it done. I mean, Skinner did play out of his mind, but it just seemed like certain guys that were needed to step up didn't do it.
Okay. So now that we've kind of covered everything up into the Stanley Cup, let's get into the finals. So, Sans making a pick because I'm gonna make a pick later. I'm gonna ask you to make a pick later. What are you like initially seeing with this finals? Like when you first saw it was gonna be Oilers versus Panthers, what was your like immediate first thoughts going into like the series? What's your overall analysis?
That it's going to be fun as hell to watch. Um, kind of similar styles of hockey, but not really. It's like Edmonton is so fast. They're so fast. Um, and Florida plays heavy and they're pretty fast. So I just think it's going to be high speed, high intensity, um, really, really good hockey. I think it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. I really do.
Yeah, to me, I don't want to put it in like basic terms, but it's kind of like the offense of Oilers is so like electric and so fast, and like they can score a million goals. But then you have the Panthers who kind of play the opposite way. They
Mm.
like suffocate you. They don't make sure you can't shoot. So I think it's going to be a super interesting dynamic of those two parts like playing against each other, and I think it's going to be a really good series as well. So one aspect I wanted to go into was the goalie preview, just on both sides. So I'm not really familiar with Skinner. I don't know much about him, just following this playoffs. And then on the other side, Bobrovsky, I know he's pretty good, but it seems like he can have games where he is vulnerable. So what's your take on both these goalies going into this final?
Um, so my take. So I'll start with Bob first. Sergei Bobrovsky, I think if he wins a cup, is starting to get strongly considered for the Hall of Fame. He's been, I think he's a two-time Vezina winner. He's been an all-star. He's been part of a lot of good teams, and he's showing it. He did the same thing last year in a few games. Playoff Bob is like a thing now. Um, so I think if he can keep playing at the level he's playing, or a little bit less than that, um, I think he's the better goalie in the series for sure. Skinner, I think I said in like Edmonton won, what was it, game 3 or 4? They won it like 2-0 or 2-1. And I was like, there's no way Skinner's gonna keep this up. And then he decided to just keep playing out of his mind. Um, I don't think it's sustainable for him. I really don't. And with how Florida plays, I think Skinner's like a career like flat 900 save percentage guy. He's inconsistent, and I think how heavy Florida plays, how much pressure they're going to put on him, I think he's going to crumple. I really do.
Okay, so major edge to Florida in that you're saying. Okay.
Hmm.
So I want to talk a little bit about Connor McDavid. Me and you had talked about this a little previously, but you had some high remarks for Connor McDavid. So can you just describe for like people who may not watch as much, like what McDavid means to the sport? Like how good is he in comparison to other players like in the league now and even in the past?
Sure. I think I told you, and I don't think it's a hot take at all. Connor McDavid is the best talent that anybody's ever seen step on in the NHL. And now that's not like throwing shade at Gretzky, Gordie Howe, Messier, even guys like Crosby, Ovi that are going to be in the Hall of Fame sometime soon. He's a different animal. And if you take his like adjusted scoring metrics and this year's offense, he would have gotten tried for witchcraft in like 1979. He's amazing. I think a good comparison. You take him and then take like a David Pastrnak. David Pastrnak is one of the best wings in the league, one of the best offensive talents in the league. And I'm a huge Bruins fan, so and I'd take him almost over almost anybody. Um, I I'd give up Pastrnak and 3 first-round picks for Connor McDavid in a trade. I'd give him Pastrnak and whatever else they wanted. Like
Yeah.
there's S tier where McDavid is, and he's alone there. He's a 1-of-1.
High praise for McDavid. So wrapping up here a little bit, who are you rooting for in the series? I think this is an obvious answer. I will probably have the same answer, but is there any part of you that even is rooting, like would be okay with the Panthers winning, or is it just all Oilers?
I mean, I'd be okay with it for guys like Bobrovsky to get his first one. They got another vet, Okposo, who's been in the league for like 1,300 games. I love seeing vets get their chance at the cup and succeeding. Um, Other than that, though, the rest of them can go to hell. I'm,
Yeah,
I'm good with the Panthers. I hope the Oilers win. I do.
I'm in the same boat. Fuck the
Yeah.
Panthers. Fuck
Yep.
Bennett. Fuck all of
Yep.
them. So last question before we make our picks. I want to bring up the topic of home ice. So it's been made somewhat apparent to me that Florida is not as big of a hockey town as, say, like even Edmonton, or they don't really care as much as other teams in like the Northeastern Canada. So
Yep.
what do you make of home ice advantage just overall in the playoffs? It doesn't seem to be as big of a factor as in other sports, but still plays a part. So do you think that could play a part in this series? And it seems like Edmonton will have the major home ice advantage. Do you want to speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think I used to think there was a much bigger advantage to having home ice, but after these playoffs, like I think Florida is 500 at home ice. The Bruins were had a losing record. I think the Rangers lost more games at home in this past series than they did. Um, it seems like teams almost get off on going in there and just sucking the life out of another team's building. That being said, the Western Canadian barns in the playoffs are sick. They're so loud. I it's on my bucket list to go to one. I think you're right there. Absolutely, that Edmonton's going to have that advantage because Florida still has empty seats in their arena for during
Oh,
the
wow.
playoffs. It's kind of messed up.
Okay, so that's all I had for the NHL. So now I'll leave the floor open for some official finals picks. I'll let you go first as the guest. Take it away.
Sure. So I think I had told you initially, I'm like, oh, Florida's gonna sweep them. Florida in five. I still think I want Edmonton to win. I'm taking Florida in 6 games now. Um, because I think McDavid and Draisaitl are gonna steal one. I think another one of those games is just gonna be close, and Edmonton does squeak it out. Skinner has a good one, but I think by game 4, it's gonna be over. I wouldn't be surprised if it's 2-1 Edmonton or 2-2 through 4 games. But then I think after that it's done. Florida's going to do what they've done to every other team so far.
Okay, well, we got educated guess versus uneducated guess. I'm going Oilers in 7, hard overhead. Um, I think things will be close. It's going to come down to the Oilers being able to just outscore them basically, which they have McDavid. I'm putting some belief in it. I don't know. I think if they get it done, it's going to be in 7. We need more game sevens in this series. I mean, in this playoff. So I'm going Oilers in 7. That's my official prediction for this. So before this segment on the podcast, I'm going to have my friend Jazzo on to talk about the Celtics, but you're also an avid NBA fan. So do you want to make a pick for the NBA finals on the record?
Yeah. I'm gonna go Celtics in 6. That seems like a pretty chalky pick so far. I feel like I've seen that on like Twitter and everything more than anything else. Um, but I just based on how both teams play, kind of the same thing I said for like McDavid and Draisaitl. Luka and Kyrie are going to steal one or two. There's no doubt in my mind about that. I just hope it's 2 max. Celtics in 6.
All right. That's my pick as well. All right, so thank you so much for coming on the Dubcast, educating us on the NHL. I'm sure you'll be back. Is there anything you want to plug, like social media wise, anything in that terms?
Thank you for having me. My first time on the Dubcast. I've got a card page, Thrilly Dilly, Thrilligan's Island. Check us out.
Yes,
We're
sir.
we're making videos. Dubby's on here too. Eventually we're gonna start moving some stuff. So if you have interest, check us out. We greatly appreciate it. But thanks for having me, Dubby.
All right, man. Thank you.
Take it easy.
You as well. Moving on, just wanted to close with some thoughts about UFC 302, which was the past weekend. So, my overall thoughts on this card, wasn't expecting a ton going in, just due to the fights that were there. Some of them were pretty lopsided odds wise. Turns out, wasn't that great of a card, just due to what happened. A lot of decisions in the fact that they were not really close fights either. A lot of them were unanimous decisions, some weird scorecards, which is something to watch moving forward. I think the new gloves, maybe the fighters were just getting used to them, so there wasn't a lot of knockouts. We did have 2 submissions, which we'll get into, but yeah, overall, just nothing crazy really on this card. With that being said, as usual, I will go into my thoughts on the main card and also all of the fights that we told you to bet on here at the Dubcast. So, improved my winning percentage this weekend. Went up 66 cents overall on the weekend. Thank you guys for your support. If you backed me, we went 3-2. So we improved our winning percentage and record from 1-3 to 4-5. So still looking to be in the green. We'll see what happens moving forward. So touching on the fights that we did bet on early, in the early prelims, we had the Eileen Perez fight, which this was one of my bigger locks on the board. She got it done against Edwards. Nothing really crazy. Also, this fight went the distance. Was a little nervous they weren't going to give her the decision, but clearly round 1 and 3 she owned. So good for Eileen. Daniel Cormier is in love with Eileen Perez. Thinks she's really beautiful, so I don't disagree. But moving on, we had Phil Rowe, who was one of our losses. Just didn't see it from Phil. Watched this one at Applebee's. I don't know. It didn't really seem like he was throwing a lot. It seemed like he was out of contention with Matthews. Matthews just seemed to dominate the fight decision-wise. I don't know, man. Phil, you got to be more active. You got to start doing something. Go for better strikes. Throw more things. Try a takedown or something. Just lost every round. The odds were decent. I thought you were going to win. Just didn't win. Not good, Phil. Moving on to Jailton Almeida. He beat somebody I forget the name of. I watched MMA Guru's video and he called him just a fat slob. I'm not going to say that, but this guy clearly did not have what it took to beat Almeida, who has gone against all these crazy guys. Jailton gets the round 1 sub. Good for him. Another win on the board there. And also, just only the win on the board there. So getting into our fight card, our main card, and as the night went further and further on, I was more and more intoxicated. So if some of these are wrong, my statements and analysis, let me know. Just starting off here with the Randy Brown and Zaleski Dos Santos fight. Didn't think anything was crazy here. Randy gets it done to go the distance, as I predicted. But I didn't predict Randy. I predicted it to go the distance. Zaleski won a round. I'm not really remembering what round. This is a decent fight. Nothing really crazy, though. Nothing to write home about. Then we had Nico Price versus Alex Morono, and Nico Price ends up being the only underdog on the card to win a fight. So something to note moving forward. Morono just looked really slow. He couldn't really do much in the octagon. Didn't really seem like he was on his A game. Don't know what's up with him. Price gets the win after their rematch after 7 years. Moving on to the third fight in the main card, we had Kevin Holland versus Mikal. Not going to attempt to say the last name again. Holland gets the arm sub. Good for him. He fucking broke his arm because the ref wouldn't call it or the guy wouldn't tap. Just a crazy fight. As predicted, Holland wins due to then probably just want to keep him as a gatekeeper and keep him in the rankings. So Holland keeps his spot. He'll probably accept another fight on 2 days' notice again in a week. So I'm sure we'll see Kevin Holland in the near future. Our co-main event was a 5-round fight between Strickland and Costa. We told you to take Costa. That was wrong. He clearly was outmatched by Strickland. After watching this fight, I gained a lot of respect for Strickland. I retract my statement of saying he's a fraud. He's really good, and the way he can walk you down, only a couple people have been able to stand in there and fight with him, that being Dricus, who some people thought he lost. Dricus actually lost that fight, and I'm forgetting the other guy at the moment, but Strickland's going to be a tough out, man. I'm sure he'll be back in the title fight after Izzy gets his fight against Dricus. So Strickland, I'm keeping an eye on moving forward. Really like the way he fought. Don't love the person, but just the way he fought was respectable. And the joke he made about Izzy after the fight was actually pretty funny too. So on to our main event, we had Poirier versus Makhachev. Poirier hung in there for a while, actually was decently positioned on some of the scorecards. Ultimately, Makhachev prevails in a round 5 submission. When someone's like minus 600, that you're probably going to win the fight. Obviously, there's cases where it doesn't happen, but I saw some books say that if Poirier won this fight, they'd be in the most debt of all their times or whatever. So it seemed like a pretty obvious Makhachev win there. We told you that this fight would go over our start round 3, go over 2.5 rounds. Took both of those, locked both those up, so that was good. So overall, can't complain on a winning day. 66 cents richer than before. So that's going to wrap up the UFC 302 thoughts. So moving on, we got UFC 303, which is in hot water right now. They're saying that the McGregor and Chandler fight's off. Obviously, there was this press conference on Monday, June 3rd, where it was expected to be in Ireland. Michael Chandler turns his plane around. The press conference is canceled. There's the pay-per-view is getting pulled from ESPN Plus. There's weird stuff going on. Really crossing my fingers to see this McGregor versus Chandler fight. I think it's really interesting. I'm sure they can find a somewhat suitable matchup to sub in there. And we will be back with our coverage of UFC 303 with hopefully a guest. Still working on the details of that, but as the time gets closer, hopefully I'll have a guest to come on and give some picks for UFC 303, and we can maybe get above 500 on the Dubcast picks, guys. Other things sports-wise, just wanted to give a quick RIP to Bill Walton, a legend in the sports game. Growing up in high school, I was an Oregon fan, so turning on Pac-12 with him and Dave Posh at 11 p.m. and just hearing him go on and these rants was crazy and just so funny. We're going to miss Bill Walton. He couldn't take the world without the Pac-12, and that was his conference, man. And Bill, RIP, man. I'm sorry for everyone who knew him, and it's a pain in all of our sports fans' hearts to have to lose Bill Walton. So I wanted to give a quick shout out to Bill Walton. Rest in peace, brother. Moving on, what you can expect from this podcast. Obviously today here we had the finals preview with two guests, which thank you to our two guests for coming on, and what to expect moving forward with sports recaps and podcast. So tentatively going to plan a finals recap for both the NHL and the NBA. So whenever both of those end, we'll maybe have a guest on. We'll talk those through, especially if the Celtics win. If they lose, actually definitely either way, what happens with the Celtics, we'll have a podcast for you guys, either me in complete defeat or me in peak life. So we'll see what happens there with the finals in both sports. After that, the summer gets dry, it gets into baseball season, so I will be doing a baseball preview for just going through, probably taking a look at the standings for the first time, seeing what's good with all the teams, seeing who's doing well, seeing who's doing not. Probably have a guest on to help explain what's been going on in MLB, since I don't really watch too frequently. I just keep up with the box scores and watch fantasy numbers. After that, going to keep on with the UFC, all the big main events. We'll have a prediction video and analysis, and then we'll see if I continue with the breaking down after. I like to pair it with something because it's only a little short thing, but we'll see what happens with that. Moving on to late summer and fall, that is when the NFL season ramps up, and this is one of my more knowledgeable sports, so I'm going to ramp up coverage of the NFL. Definitely going to have some of you guys on here to talk NFL with me. We'll have some crazy takes for the NFL, predicting playoffs, quarterbacks, rankings, all that stuff, fantasy stuff maybe, probably not because I don't like talking about fantasy. But yeah, excited for this NFL season. Things will start kicking up in like August. So thank you guys for sticking along with me on this podcast. Thank you to our guests again for this, and go Celtics.